Welcome, 8th grade families. My name is Mr. DiMartino. I'm one of the assistant principals here at Dake. We're so excited to have you here for open house and share some of the wonderful things that we will be working on with your children this year. Thank you for being here. Up first is our art teacher, Miss Cox. We're so excited to have you here again, and if you need to step out for any reason, it does get a little loud in this entrance area over here, so I will just have you step over to the side if you need to take a call or anything right outside the room. Thank you again for being here.
Hello everyone, my name is Courtney Cox. I'm one of 2 art teachers here at Dake this year. Angela Nassimos couldn't be here this evening. She sends warm regards. This year, this is the 2nd year that Dake has been combined in art classes for both 7th and 8th grade. So we have combined courses in a rotating curriculum. So if your 8th grader had art last year, they're doing completely different things this year. And the cycle circles back around from year to year. Across these 2 years, we really try to give students exposure to lots of different art materials. Last year, they really explored acrylic, clay, charcoal drawing, perspective drawing, and this year kind of we're pivoting. Right now, they're working on a grid portrait, the Senator Bob Ross picture. They work with 1 square and their entire class. What I do? Got it. But their entire class works on 1 portrait and each student gets their own square. Throughout this year, our next project is going to be watercolor, and with COVID, a lot of students didn't get to work with clay as one of the restrictions with COVID, so we're really trying to make sure to bring that back this year as a focus to really catch up on lost time because it's a loved material by many. If your student doesn't identify themselves as an art kid, don't worry. We have many students of many abilities and interest levels in art. We really try to outline for them specifically what each project will be measured by. We really try with such a subjective subject that we really outline for them specifically what is going to be measured so they really have a solid understanding of just because you painted the Mona Lisa, it's a drawing project, so even though it's absolutely beautiful, maybe that doesn't apply for the skills that we're looking for. So with every project, we outline at the beginning these different criteria for each project, but we look at pursuit, so that development over time of the project, invention, that creativity within the assignment given, design, kind of really looking at how their subject matter is arranged, expression, so bringing their personal identity to any project, and then craftsmanship is something, especially at Dake, that we're really focused on, making sure that we're really building those methods and materials skills so that they can be really prepared for high school. When they get to high school, they are required to take 1 credit of art in order to graduate, so we really want to prepare them for any class that they might choose to take at the high school level. We're excited to have them this year. We have a lot of fun things planned. Art Club is on most Tuesdays, and we have that information available on Schoology, or you can contact me through email. We would love to have them. Thank you very much. Next up is Taylor with Facts.
So facts is like the old school home economics, but there's a little twist to it. We're really trying to get students to balance family life, work life, school life, and become ready for, like, I like to say, the real world. This year for 8th grade, so I probably had your student last year for 7th grade, so they probably did 7 units, so this 7 units is completely different. So then it flip-flops back and forth, so they're not learning the exact same thing. So this year in 8th grade, they're going to learn about stress management, communities and families, babysitting and child development. We're going to do careers and basic job readiness, budgeting and paychecks. We're going to do menu planning and advertisement, and also a little bit of like interior design. For facts class, I do not necessarily give students quote-unquote homework, and not everything is easy to put on Schoology because it's more of like a hands-on experience class. But I do, if they don't necessarily finish in class, I do have them finish it for quote-unquote homework, or I work with them in lunch study hall. It is 7th and 8th grade combined, so I do see them for like a total of 45 times for the semester, so roughly after Christmas break, we will switch. So if I don't have your student out, I will have them in January. Okay, and that's it. Thanks. It's actually like 6 slides.
Can I speak loud enough? Do I have to use the mic?
No, you're good.
Okay, thank you. All right. I'm Aaron Kozakevich, but everybody calls me Mr. K, so if you've heard of Mr. K, now you can put a face and a beard to the name. All right. 8th grade tech. What is it all about? So, we've been hearing quite a bit about the whole STEAM. Well, we represent the technology and the engineering in STEAM, so we break it up into 4 units. The design process, which is pretty much structures. You might have heard about it as bridges. So the kids are in the middle of pretty much sketching and creating a full-scale drawing of the bridges. Then we get into electricity, electronics. So I brought a couple samples. Civil machines and mechanisms, and then automation, robotics. Maybe I should hold on to this. All right, so here's where we're at right now. We started talking about tension, compression, torsion, shearing. Those are all forces that act on all structures. Okay, and they're the forces that pretty much tear apart structures. So when they design their bridges, they got to think about, you know, pieces being pushed together and pulled apart. So they came up with a bunch of sketches today and yesterday, and started putting together their full-scale drawings. And then they got to figure out, okay, which pieces am I going to purchase? Because it's not necessarily the strongest bridge; it's more of an efficiency type thing. So if somebody can build a bridge that's way stronger for less money, that's obviously a better design. So we'll put together our bridges. They'll get together with a partner, have to build something like this or something like this, whether it's an arch or a truss. All right, then we put it into this stress analyzer, so it will actually draw down in the center of the bridge up to about 1,000 pounds. And we'll videotape everything, and then we can break it down slide by slide by slide. All right, trying to figure out exactly where it broke, why it broke, and then if you were to go back to the drawing board, as an engineer would, fix it. How would you make it better? Then from there, we get into electricity, electronics. So we'll talk about atomic structure and why certain things conduct electricity, other things don't. Alternative power is a big thing right now. Everybody loves talking about electric cars and Teslas. We talk about circuit design, series circuits, parallel circuits, combo circuits. And then eventually we get into using this bug or butterfly. All right, it's a combo circuit. So the end result is this thing will kind of scoot around on the floor until it bumps into something, and that switch will turn that motor the opposite direction, so it'll pretty much go in reverse and then go bump into something else. So this will scoot around on the floor until either the batteries go dead or the cat picks it up and sends it across the room. Then we get into simple machines and mechanisms. So we'll talk about all 6 simple machines, gear types and gear ratios, mechanical advantage, and then Rube Goldberg machines. Has anybody ever heard of a Rube Goldberg machine? So a couple years ago, during COVID, and everybody was stuck at home, I was trying to figure out what I could get my kids to do at home. So I said, okay, think of a simple task that you would have to do every day, and then come up with a complex machine to perform that task for you. And they came up with these awesome designs, pretty much tore apart a room or maybe even several rooms in a house to feed the dog. So I wanted to bring it back to the classroom, so I came up with the idea last year. Right, you have this much space, come up with a machine that is going to do something. A lot of kids don't like to raise their hand, so I decided to do this one. I hope it works. I tried. I was 10 for 10 in my room about 5 minutes ago. Oh, there we go. All right, so they'll go and make it all the way around, through there. Yes! We'll get into open loop and closed loop systems, get into some basic programming, and then from there, I borrowed these from the science department. These are super cool. You can program them, all right, and get them to kind of follow obstacle courses on the floor, or follow like a pattern or something like that. They change colors. We did some painting with these last year. That was a lot of fun. All right. Am I over time?
I mean, you're super exciting, so keep going. Keep waiting.
One last plug for Robotics Club, all right, if anybody has an interest in Lego Mindstorms, all right, we run a club, it'll be every first and third Tuesday of the month in my room, from 3 to about 3:40. I'm gonna leave it at that. Now you're up.
We're really,
Yeah, we gotta follow
we can't
that.
follow this. We don't have any props, we don't have, I remember like back in the day, it was like mousetrap.
It is
mousetrap.
Yeah.
All right, good evening. My name is Kaylee Sparrow, and this is Chris Taylor. We are the two physical education teachers here at Dake. I just want to give you an overview of our curriculum and expectations down in PE. So when our students come to Dake from Rogers or Iroquois or other districts, our main focus is to start to try to create lifelong movers of activity. So we start to incorporate what we call non-traditional activities, where we try to introduce students to different activities that maybe they've never experienced before, and hopefully they gravitate to something, maybe they find something, a new talent that they didn't know they were good at something, and they kind of stick with that after they leave high school. When they aren't, scheduled for PE, they have an activity that they enjoy, so they can continue to reap the benefits of physical activity. So some of the different types of units we do is we introduce pickleball, which is like a huge sport right now. A lot of people playing like in their 70s and 80s, so it's again lifelong sport of movement. We do badminton, table tennis. We turn our gymnasium into an archery range. So we really try to introduce some more activities that aren't so sport oriented. We totally understand that some students find physical education to be sometimes stressful, sometimes it provides some anxiety. So again, we try to do some things that become more individual and not so out in the open team aspect. With that being said, we have both 7th and 8th graders, and we get students from all teams. So we have classes that students might not know each other. So one of our biggest things right off the bat is creating an environment where everybody feels safe and feels like they can do and succeed within our class. And that entails doing some cooperative activities, so everybody realizes that somebody has stuff to offer, whether it's more strategic, whether it's more physical, but everybody has something to offer within our class. Where were we? So expectations, really, to be able to participate in PE, all they need are sneakers. Whatever they decide to wear to school, obviously we talk about movable clothes, the better, but really what they need are sneakers. We don't allow the Crocs in sport mode, which students are very upset about, but we need sneakers just because we need a good sole. We need the foot to be, secure, so it helps decrease risk of injury, especially like rolled ankles. So we ask for sneakers. With that, our grading policy is we really utilize the Dake core values as, again, creating that really good culture and climate down in our class. So that is actually one aspect of our grading. They get 5 points every time they come to class. So, showing the Dake core values, sportsmanship, being prepared, because obviously if they're not prepared, they can't earn any points. Being physical, being active, as well as putting forth effort. And we get that every day, effort might look different for the same student, just depending on how they're feeling. Effort's going to look different between students. We understand that a skill is going to look different between each student. So again, it's all individual. What I might be able to do compared to what Mr. Taylor could do has no effect on me and my grade. And then, I'm trying to think what you were talking about. Oh yeah, so we just ask if your student needs to be excused for like one day, maybe they're not feeling well, but they need to come to school, or they strained an ankle, a muscle the night before sport, gymnastics, karate, whatever it might be, if you can just provide a note, just so we can excuse them for the day, it's totally fine, not a big deal. But if it's something that's prolonged, then it would come from the doctor. So if they have a concussion, if they broke a leg, anything like that, they would be able to be put in a study hall, so they're not just sitting down in the gymnasium while we're engaged in activity. And then when they're cleared, they would come back. Okay. Thank you. And again, you can always contact us if you have any questions or comments. All right, perfect. Thank you.
I recognize some faces. You're a little older and I am not, so it's lovely. I am very proud to represent the World Languages Department and to be working with these amazing colleagues of ours. You need to know that we are one of the only only school districts in New York State that offers 5 languages at the high school level. Italiano, Deutsch, Espanol, Francais, and we offer this year at the high school Korean with Frau Green, who switches to, what's her name in Korean?
So far, Miss Green.
Oh, okay. Well, okay. Anyways, I'm going to let everybody introduce themselves. I am Senora Guido, and this is my 40th year in education and my 36th year here in the district. And I'm aging backwards like Benjamin Button. But anyway, I teach Italian 7 and Italian 1.
Hi, guten Abend, ich bin die Frau Green. I teach German, 7th grade, 8th grade. I also do teach at the high school. Our Korean class is an exploratory class. I'm learning with the students. Yes.
All right, hola, me llamo Señorita Benjamin, Rachel Benjamin. I teach 8th grade Spanish, but my room is stationed over in the high school. So if you were looking for me here earlier, that's because I walk students to the high school every day.
Buenas noches, me llamo Señorita Celia Lauren Seeley. I teach 7th and 8th grade Spanish.
Hi everyone, I'm Peter Hartz and I'm the English teacher.
He doesn't speak as loudly as we do. It's French. Italians are like this.
So as you can see, we have a very closely knit department. We work together to make sure we are aligning curriculum so that when students start taking their language in the 7th grade, they are preparing each year and building each year up to whether they take, sophomore year or if they go on to AP. So a lot of the teachers that teach over at the high school also teach middle school, which is kind of nice so that students are used to their teaching style and they might have them for several years in a row.
They can't get rid of us.
And that's a good thing because first thing here on our agenda is that we're fun and engaging. And we are, really. It's a lot of fun to learn a new language because it's a little bit like going back to kindergarten. We're learning how are you, and we're learning how to shake hands, and we're learning names of furniture and other things. We're also learning to conjugate verbs. We're learning how to put endings on adjectives. What are verbs? What are adjectives? There's a lot of work and a lot of stress that comes with that as we teach them the language, the culture, and try to help them to become global citizens. As we're working through that with our students, if you at home are giving them a positive, even if you hated language and you thought you can't speak it, don't pass that on to them. Let them try. We really appreciate that can-do attitude, and let them play with it. And if you find that they're overwhelmed, reach out to us, because we and our older students, and we will find support for them. So it is okay if you don't speak the language. If you do, that's great. But if you don't, it's all right. Reach out. We're here to help each and every one of them succeed.
So one thing that's a little bit different in 8th grade as opposed to 7th grade, last year they only had their language every other day for the full year. This year it is every single day, so that is a bit of a change for them. But what's important to understand is it's a high school credit. So it is a class that they need to pass in order to graduate, which means they have to pass both the class and the final assessment. So it's a class they really need to take seriously. We also consider it actually one of the core classes this year. So just something to keep in mind. It is really a course that they need to focus on and make sure they're doing well in.
Yeah, and their final assessment at the end of the year, which Ms. Seeley said they have to pass the course. They're going to be tested in speaking, writing, listening, and reading. So they have to do a small dialogue with us, a small back and forth orally. And then they have a listening that they must do, which is more or less, we will read a small passage to them and they have to answer a multiple choice question. They have to write a small paragraph without any aids. And they also have to analyze, what's the word we even use for it?
Authentic text.
Yeah. I was thinking of a different word. But, they have to look at
I made that up. I wanted to sound smart.
reality.
No. Yes, reality. That's it.
So they have to look at like small ads or recipes or things like that and answer questions about what they've read. So that will be coming in June. So lots of work to do.
If they keep up the work all year long, they will pass. They'll do fine. Just continue encouraging them to every day practice a little.
We have a very good passing rate in the World Languages Department because we know where you live. No, on that note, reach out to us. We're here for you. We're here for your kids. And we are going to introduce our beautiful friends in the Science Department.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Laura Reeves.
I'm Michelle Dormitzer.
We teach Science 8 I teach 7th and 8th grade, so I've had most of my students in 8th grade I had in 7th grade. So I don't know if they like it, but I love it. So anyway, it's great. Oh, no, fine. Okay, so in Science 8 this year, last year was a lot of chemistry with a little bit of earth science and a little bit of living environment. This year we do a lot more physics, it's a little bit more toys. We play with a lot of toys. We have an introduction to energy, which we're in right now, where we do the 5 major forms of energy, and the kids switch between potential and kinetic, and we have race cars, and tomorrow we're doing a phenomenon, which Ms. Dormitzer will tell you about. I'm going to ruin it. And then we'll head into Newton's laws of motion, which is fun. Again, more toys. Electricity and magnetism will be a new unit for us this year. Electromagnetic energy and light. We do a little bit of astronomy. One thing that the kids do tend to like is we bring out the VR goggles so that we can travel to outer space. What's interesting is they're really old, and the new ones are way better, but this is what we got, and hopefully the phones will work this year. Every year we don't know. So hopefully we can make the phones work this year. We'll do a heat, we'll do a climate and weather. We then get into some living environments, some inheritance, adaptations, and natural selections is where we end our year. Those are our major topics for this year.
And typically the way we start a unit is we have a phenomenon, something that kids, some kind of a hook to get them engaged. Tomorrow we have a brick in our classrooms that we have hanging from the ceiling, and so we'll start and ask them to predict what they think will happen if we stretch the brick to our nose and then release it. And they make a prediction, they think it'll hit us in the face, then they make a model as we actually do it, and they're sometimes disappointed, sometimes they hit us in the face.
Oftentimes disappointed. Do it again and push it this time.
So they'll make a model, they'll ask questions about what they saw and wonder, and then we'll do some mini lessons, we'll gather some data, then they'll be able to answer the questions that they've asked, and hopefully found some new knowledge. And then it's always nice to go back to see the beginning models that they make, and then at the end they can go back and add all the new learning. So it's a nice way to show their progression.
Typical grading that we had last year, we have a 20% bucket, we had an 80% bucket. 20% bucket we kind of describe as we're still learning this stuff. So it's, we're trying it, it's in the 20% bucket. Okay, you really should have it by now. Now it goes in the 80% bucket. And there are tests and quizzes obviously in there, but we do put our labs in there as well. Our labs almost always summarize, okay, take the data that you gathered and summarize that into the learning that we've been talking about. So that does go in the 80%. So if students aren't great test takers, we try not to bury them with tests. The labs often help them. So it keeps their grades where we think it should be, because it's not always all about the tests.
So to ensure success, we encourage kids to check Infinite Campus to see what they're missing, any incomplete assignments that they might have, so they can get those turned in. We offer a lot of feedback on assignments that we encourage kids to go back and read and utilize to maybe make corrections on their things and hand those back in. We use Schoology sort of as a library. We put links to videos and simulations and copies of notes, and sometimes we give homeworks out of Schoology, so that's always a nice place to go if kids need some extra support with what they're doing. In May and June, in 8th grade science, there is a state assessment that tests everything that the kids have learned from 5th grade forward. This is the last year for this test, which has been given since 2001. And we've got new state standards that follow the next generation science standards. So the next test won't be given until 2025. So this is the last year for this test, and then they'll revamp it for the years coming up. So there's a lab portion and then a written portion, and it's a lot easier. I mean, it's a pretty good, I think it's a pretty fair test, and we use it for data gathering, which is helpful.
We do a cumulative final for 8th grade as well. Because this test covers everything 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th, which we do prepare them for, but we then also at the very end of the year do just an 8th grade assessment. This is what we taught you, this is what we expect. So they kind of do 2 tests in 8th grade, but it's not really on the same stuff.
And email with questions, concerns, anything that you need help with. If your child has me as a student, as me as a teacher, I'm Dormitzer, and I have a Remind app that I can send out updates and things, so you can click that QR code, or if you don't feel like doing that now, you can just email me and I will send you the link. And your students also have a paper in their folder from the first day of school that has a link in there as well. So anything that you need, we're always here to help. And
if they're feeling uncomfortable for any reason, just don't hesitate to let us know, because we can probably fix it pretty quickly.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Springstead. I direct the 8th grade band. I assist with the 7th grade band, and I also direct the jazz ensemble here. My other colleagues are right behind me here. It's a race.
I'm Mrs. Welch. I conduct the 7th grade band, and I assist with the 8th grade band.
My name is Mark Falco. I do the choruses here and general music.
And our colleague, Ms. Jakonowitz, couldn't be here for this portion this evening, but our materials here will kind of pertain to all of these economies. Right. I think the other place, they advanced it for us. Sorry about that. So a bit about band and orchestra. As you might remember, rehearsals were every other day for the entire year. And they are split 7th and 8th grade for both band and orchestra. We do have small group lessons once every 6 days, so they are pulled out on a 4 to 5 period rotation, so they're not missing the same class over and over and over. We also know that in 8th grade we start encountering things like advanced math and advanced science. We are sensitive to that. We know that sometimes those classes are difficult to miss because of the rigor and of the material. So we ask the students just communicate with us, negotiate with us. We can usually find another time if they just cannot miss that material. We try to be as flexible as we can. Plus we also build in kind of a makeup week at the end of the quarter. So if it wasn't able to happen earlier, we could maybe get a time or two to kind of make up for any lessons that weren't achieved earlier.
The emphasis for band and orchestra is performance. In a large group setting, we're working on ensemble skills, how they play together, and in the lesson groups, we can work on individual skills. So that's really going to be our big focus, and as you come in, you'll see that there are, on the syllabus that has been handed out previously, and also we have extra copies at the room, you'll see that there are 3 concerts a year that are required. We do ask to make sure that they get on the family calendar, that they're only missed in case of a real emergency. They really do learn those ensemble skills of how to play together and how to really relate to each other and count on each other. So it's very important to us that everybody is there because everybody counts. We ask that the one thing you do more than anything else is to help them establish any sort of practice regimen at home. Even if it's just playing, bless you, even if it's just playing a few minutes every day, that's actually a lot more productive and a lot more helpful than trying to practice for an hour once a week. So just get it as a part of your routine, maybe right before, right after dinner, or right in line with the rest of their homework. Small reinforcements make such a huge difference and make the entire ensemble play better together in the long run.
I would just add a quick plug for Jazz Ensemble. We're still looking for a few trumpeters or trombonists, so if you have one of those and you're interested, please come have them come see me. Thanks.
So, I'm here to talk about chorus and general music. Chorus is a performing ensemble. We meet every other day for the entire year. Our groups, a bit different than the instrumental groups, are combined 7th and 8th grade groups. So we have both grade levels in the same ensembles. Our choruses are split into treble and bass choirs for different voice timbre. There's technical needs for changing voices. In the same way, there's string instruments are in the orchestra and the wind instruments or brass instruments are in the band. Different instruments have different technical needs, and so all voices transition from little kid to big kid. And some transition high, some transition low. We place kids in the group based on expected vocal transition, but any person is welcome in any ensemble. We talk about the specifics of vocal work, going for low, going for high, and a lot of our work is that. It is a performance ensemble. We do performance, and so just getting to know your instrument. I talk to the kids like, it's like someone just handed you a new pair of shoes and they don't quite fit and they tell you to go run a race. You got to teach them how to work with that new thing. You got to teach them. And so that's what we do 7th and 8th grade particularly. Once they get into 9th grade and on, that isn't an option. We have just one vocal ensemble, SATB, soprano, alto, tenor, bass. When they're in 8th grade, they have the option of being Sound Crowd, which is our 8th grade select group, which is a club. It's not a curricular vocal ensemble, but they do get together. It's a smaller group, soprano, alto, tenor, bass, and that's something I'll start to talk to 7th graders about March, somewhere around there. We start talking about it for the following year. Emphasis on using your voice safely, comfortably in an ensemble. That's true, but I'm going to get to more of that in a minute. There's 3 concerts, just like the other groups. There's a December concert, there's either February or March, and then there is a June concert. When you look at the PTSA calendar, please do look for whether it says treble choir, bass choir, or sound crowd, and just confirm that your kid knows what group they're in. Some stuff still says, for example, 8th grade this or 7th grade that. We made the transition to keep the mixed grades in one ensemble, so there's no more 8th grade this or 7th grade that when it comes to vocals. All right, so just to be aware of that. It says Frog and Toad because I don't think I saved it right when I changed the slide. It is Lion King this year, okay? Lion King is the show this year, and it is a doozy, a good way kind of a show. So far we've had a week of rehearsals. It's going to be amazing. It's fantastic. Bring the family. It's going to be so good. Tickets are going to be, I hope, fairly cheap, and everyone's going to be able to come. All right? So it's going to be really, really, really good. And it's so good to get people back on stage, and they can be like standing next to each other. And last year we were so grateful to be able to do a show, but you know, it had a mask. 2 years ago we did Shrek, where we had to video our stuff where the kids danced, and then we had to record their singing later because we couldn't actually have them dance and sing at the same time. I mean, we made it work, but we're back, and it's going to be amazing. And please, sort of on the same track, I want to talk about general music and this. So you say, how is that true? But I will get there. I get around. I say to my kids, I'm like, Mr. Falco, he's probably one of the 5 most distractible teachers at Dake, and the kids go like this. It's true. So it's a true story. They really did it here. So we meet every other day. It's a semester course, so it's only half year. It's combined 7th and 8th grade. It's different. So general music is a class where kids learn music and hopefully take it with them. Because it's the last time New York State says you must take a music class. It's sort of our last chance to get music in them before they go away from us. I teach general music. And also Sarah Dresnick teaches the general music class, and she's phenomenal. She's fantastic. She also works at Rogers. She's the orchestra teacher over there. The curriculums are very different. And I'm just gonna go ahead and say it if that's okay. The ability to sing in an ensemble or play in an ensemble is amazing. It is huge. It is life-changing. It is affirming of life and of individual and creation of something, an expression of art and feeling in there. It is so, so important. It is so important. And so good. It is so valuable. I'm going to tell you because I tell you anecdotally. Research supports it. We'll look it up. I'll give it to y'all. It's so good. Many of these kids didn't even get the chance in their elementary schools because we had to have that safety of the singing and the breathing, and I get that. But many of them then never really thought, not for me. And if there's a way I can collar a kid and get them to join an ensemble, join mine because I want them in mine, but band and orchestra are also fantastic. They truly, truly are. I don't mean, I'm not trying to be goofy or whatever, but you know, it's different. You don't need to go get an instrument to be in my class. You know what I'm saying? You don't need to feel that way. You just come. I want the kids in there because it's huge. It's huge. And I'm going to say the experience of being in a choir, I will say, even in front of everybody back there, it's better than being in a general music class. I teach both classes. I teach a fantastic general music class, by the way, fantastic. But it's better over here. So that's my plug. They need to get out there. They need to perform. They need to make relationships. They need to make community. They need to know they got a place every day that they can go, and there's people that can just breathe for a second with. That's what we do. You know, so anyways, that's my commercial. I'm sure I'm out of time. So, what else? What else? Thank you all very much. Thank you all. I don't need a microphone. I couldn't use it.
Okay. How are you all today? Good. We're good? It's late, it's dark outside, it's cold now, I know. No, I am not the only social studies teacher in the building. I'm just the other one here tonight. Mr. Porter is going to join me. He teaches 7th grade, not 8th grade, but he's a good friend. Moral support tonight. So I am Gabrielle Brannigan. Allison Tamarchio and Kathy Selecki are also social studies 8 teachers. Unfortunately, they could not be here tonight, and they send their regards. So social studies 8 is basically United States history post-1865. We cover 8 units. We start with a unit called Reconstruction, and then typically we end like capital C, capital R, civil rights in the 60s, and then in years where we have the time, we make it into Vietnam and Cold War. The biggest thing that I wanted to point out to you tonight, this is going to be real short, sweet, and simple. I'm equally as excited, but about music. History makes people fall asleep, so we're going to keep it short. The biggest thing that we want to communicate to you about social studies is that it is not social studies of old, it is a different world now. And so we really do focus on inquiry. We focus on allowing students to look at a variety of sources, drawing their own conclusions, and we really just provide and facilitate the framework, right? So frequently, instead of saying I teach, I tell the students I'm facilitating for you. That's what we're doing here today. And that bothers them because there's not a right answer, right? But you're drawing your own conclusions, and I can't tell you if that's right or wrong. And that's really a big focus in social studies. We're really about skill building. When they get to the high school, there's a lot more focus on the content and the dates and the names. But in 7th and 8th grade, it's really, truly about building the capacity and building the skill to analyze historical documents in an authentic and meaningful way, so that they can then take that skill with them into the real world. Thank you all for being here tonight. Thank you, Gerard, for standing with me.
Hi, we are the English 8 team. I'm Marissa Harris. I'm with Emerald. I'm Meredith Raymond. I'm with Topaz.
Lindsay Porter.
Oh, and we all decided, since we're English teachers, to bring one of our favorite books. So one of my favorite YA books is The Poet X. It's a great book. I recommend it. It's a novel in verse about a young poet finding her voice. I picked An Absolutely Remarkable Thing by Hank Green. It's a pretty interesting book about somebody becoming social media famous accidentally.
That's all the 8th graders want to do. The one I wanted to pick is checked out from my room right now, so I brought my favorite author, Jeff Zentner. The Serpent King is really the one I wanted to bring to show you, but he's just phenomenal at creating characters and then tearing your heart in two with what he does to them.
So our goals this year for your Dake student is to become more of an independent reader. We're going to be working on BOTM, which Lindsay will talk about later. Having a deeper responsibility for your academic achievement, taking pride in your individual and your group work, and obviously upholding our Dake community values of mutual respect, shared pride, shared purpose, and mutual support. So we use 2 different platforms mainly. We use Schoology and Infinite Campus. So Schoology is a way we post assignments, sometimes we comment on them. It's more like student work. And then Infinite Campus is a way we communicate grades and any information about other assignments with you guys. We, as a school, use standards-based grading. And so our goal is mastery, but we also consider learning a process, and it's definitely something that we focus on reflecting and revising, especially with our writing. And so we grade on level performance, mastery, proficiency, approaching, or incomplete or below standard, and we typically try, though, to keep assignments on like a 10-point scale. So mastery would be 10 points, and then approaching proficiency in the center would be like 7 out of 10, just how it kind of fits together. But right, we do focus a lot on revisions, on feedback, and then just kind of continuing growing in your learning and writing. Our grading categories across the board are 80% for learning tasks, assessments, writing, and so we'll talk about that being like the big bucket, and that will have a bigger sway on the overall average, and then 20% for academic behavior. So is it turned in on time? Is it complete effort? Our awesome text of study for this year, we are in the middle of the Outsiders, which is always a favorite unit. After that, we follow up with the play 12 Angry Men. We do a unit on social commentary that involves different genres, articles, short stories, poetry. We do narrative nonfiction lit circles with some great memoirs and nonfiction texts, a social justice independent reading unit where they choose what they're reading. And then we're finishing this year with a new book, King and the Dragonflies.
So glad I get to talk to you about these last couple of slides. So we, in the Outsiders right now, like what Mrs. Harris just mentioned, we talk a lot about stereotypes. And I tell our students, and I think I can speak for you too as well and put words in your mouth, that we can be stereotyped as readers. And we love to read and we love to impart that upon your students. We have a program called Book of the Moment. It's not Book of the Month, but it's our way of getting books into your young people's hands that they want to read. It's totally, they get to pick what genre, fiction, nonfiction, manga, graphic novels, whatever floats their boat. We provide, it looks a little different in all 3 of our classes. We structure things a little differently, but we provide space and place, suggestions. We like to talk about what they're reading. They infuse what they're reading independently with BOTM into our curriculum and what we're studying. So it's constant books. And just what you can see up here, where our volume, the goal is to increase their volume of reading. And the independent reading through Book of the Moment. We have a lot of independent choices that they can select from for our book circles as part of our curriculum. We're constantly modeling that culture of reading and talking about what we like and getting books into their hands. And lastly, the feedback, the check-ins, the conferences, the application, the connection to what we're doing in the classroom. If reading is important and if reading is good for you in so many ways, we need to model that and we need to give them the space and place to do that. And then, if you had any questions about how to support your student or how we can help you support your student, a couple of tips, and this kind of applies to all content areas too. Ask to see their planner. We try and help these young people with their organization skills, and it's a little different for everyone. They kind of find their way, but ask to see their planner, check IC and Schoology, like what Meredith spoke about. Engage in conversations with them about what they're doing and what they're reading, and if they'll even let you read alongside them, if they're into that. Encourage nightly device charging, please, and that bringing their charger to school is also very helpful for us as their teachers. We appreciate that. Thank you for coming tonight.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Hi everybody, I'm Nicole Denisov. I am the one and only living environment teacher. Living environment is a high school course. It ends in a Regents exam. It is usually pretty exciting for the students because it's the first time that they're able to go really in depth in one science discipline. In their previous science classes, they get a little bit of life science, a little bit of earth science, a little bit of physical science, and so this year we get to dive in from the teeny tiny atom level and then work up slowly to the entire biosphere, all talking about life. So students usually find it very engaging because they're challenged, it's a little bit more in-depth, they're learning everything at many different scales, which is super engaging for them. So for most of our units, we start with a phenomenon, which is just something to wonder about, and students ask questions and we kind of gather their background knowledge about the topic. Today we talked about what does it mean when someone says you are what you eat, so trying to think about what do we already know about nutrition and what makes up our food. Can we come up with an initial explanation for what is going on there? How does what we eat become us? And then as we go through the unit, we kind of test out explanations and revise them as we go along. So they're very involved in building those explanations themselves. They have me for 2 full periods every other day because there is a lab portion to the course. And that'll be the same for all of their high school science classes, high school Regents science classes, I should say. So they're required to do 1,200 satisfactory minutes of lab time. And so we keep those labs on file in the room, and that equates to about 30 passing labs, and we do almost 50, so it's usually not a problem. As long as they're working hard on the labs, they meet the lab requirement. I did mention they take the Regents exam kind of mid-June, but they also take the intermediate level science test, which is a little bit different from algebra. They take the algebra Regents, but they don't take the math A state test. The ILS tests their science knowledge grades 5 through 8, and it has like kind of a fun lab portion to it, and then a shorter written test, and that takes place at the end of May and early June, and then like I said, that Regents exam is mid-June. Kids are doing great so far, transitioning really well. I'm excited to see how they do as we transition into our more difficult content this week, and just feel free to contact me if you ever have any questions or concerns. Turn it over to algebra.
Hi everyone, my name is Sarah Nessler, and I teach advanced algebra and I teach math 8. And so, as Nicole was saying, this is both of our courses for advanced algebra and living environment are Regents courses. So students have to pass the course, which is typically no problem with advanced students, and they also have to pass the Regents at the end of the year. So both of those things will appear on the transcript. and living environment and algebra are the only courses that are offered at Dake that would happen with. So generally, this is like the first year where students are challenged a little bit more than they're used to in both science and math. Both courses move at a faster pace, and we're kind of covering a lot of content. At least in advanced algebra, we're kind of doing 8th grade math, and you have to do algebra, so it's definitely quicker, and then it's just a lot more maybe homework than they're used to, or outside classwork for both courses as well. So if they are struggling or they're having a hard time right now, that is actually normal, and I encourage you to just be a support system and help them reach out to their teacher and advocate for themselves in order for them to be successful. Typically, this is a year where students learn a lot about themselves as learners because this is the first time they're challenged, and I love watching that process. So for advanced algebra, our daily class routine starts with going over the most missed questions on their homework. So if your student is in advanced algebra, they submit their answers on Schoology, which gives them immediate feedback. Did I get that question right? Did I get that question wrong? And the reason I have them do that is so when I get to class the next day, I can see the most missed question, and I know that that's the question I'm going to target in class and make sure that we go over that. So they can always resubmit those homeworks at any point for a better grade. It's just more or so ways to let them know how they're doing. And then we'll do a little bit of a mini lesson, practice with peers, and then if they have time in class, they're able to start their homework. There's no more than 5 questions a night on their homework, so we try not to have it too overwhelming, but they can probably expect homework almost every night. Another thing that all the algebra teachers are doing this year is we use the Remind app, and you might have heard of that and might have used it previously as a parent, but we encourage the students to actually use it, and they can message us with homework questions. So I don't know if you've had the battle of helping a student with math at home, but sometimes it can be a struggle. So we try to alleviate that stress. I've had students today use it, and it's like a text message. They can snap me a picture of literally what they're writing, and I can say, oh, you made a mistake here, or make sure you add this correctly, or let's go back and look at the first part of the question to get them immediate direct feedback, so they can hopefully get the answer right and go to class feeling more confident. Our grading policy, so unit tests are they're the weighted the most. Test corrections are offered. So at the beginning of the year, we offer half credit back. We try to move that to a quarter credit back as the year goes on to try to encourage more preparation for tests versus the correcting after as we move towards the Regents exam at the end of the year. Quizzes are weighted in the 80% category, but they're meant to be like information for them, how am I doing right now? So they can correct those for full credit at any time. Homework is weighted in the 80% category, but it's only worth half of everything else. And as I said before, those are also can be redone for full credit at any time. And then the participation is really just, are they completing the work in class? Are they completing the homework packets outside of class? And that's pretty much it for the reading. And that brings me to Math 8. So I also teach Math 8. So this is just kind of a course outline as to what topics we will cover this year. Number sense, linear functions, linear relationships, geometry, statistics. So this is a lot like pre-algebra. So we will gear them up to take algebra next year, which will be their first Regents course in 9th grade. So for Math 8 grading, 80% of their grade comes from tests and check-ins. Instead of quizzes, we call them check-ins as a way to alleviate some pressure maybe that comes with a quiz, but also as a way for them to check in with themselves, hey, do I know this, do I not know this? And then we are doing homework as well, once a week. Right now, we're going to push that to twice a week as the year goes on so we can help prep them for high school. And then behavior is in the 20% category, which is just classwork, participation, warm-up, study guide, anything that shows that they're participating and doing their work. And so we use this a lot in Math 8 as we move towards standard-based grading, as a lot of, I'm sure the other presentations had mentioned. But this is the scale that we kind of use in both Math 7 and Math 8, so they have seen this before last year. But it's really just a way for us to communicate how they've mastered a learning target. So 4 is I've completely mastered this perfectly. 3.5 is I can do this, but I missed a parenthesis or I a negative or whatever that little error is. 3 is I can do this satisfactorily. 2 is I still need a little bit of work on this, and 1 is I still need a little bit of work on this. So we use this at almost every assessment we give, even on our unit tests, as a way for them to see how they're doing on each learning target. And that's all I have. Thank you for coming.
Thank you, Dake families, for coming. We so appreciate your support for being here. If you have any questions, as always, you're welcome to reach out to any of the people that you met today. Thank you again for coming. And I'll play you a little song as you exit. Maybe you've heard this while you're enjoying your time out. Have a great night.